Hello and welcome to the first episode of Ope a Ghost. I am your host, Heaven,
And I'm Jonathan.
and Jonathan is going to tell us about why we decided to name this Ope a Ghost.
Apparently, because it was my idea.
It was your idea, one of several.
They all of which were terrible. I don't know why we landed on this one, but um, I thought maybe if someone was listening and they weren't from the Midwest, ope was not a term that they're probably going to be familiar with. But if you're from the Midwest, we say it all the time. I was looking around on the internet to find out what I could find just to see what other people had said because it's easier to read what they say than to come up with your own definition. But this one site said that it's an expression of surprise commonly used by Midwesterners. But there was a different definition that I liked better because it's like sorry, but not. You say it when
100%.
Yeah, you say it when you like bump into somebody. You come around a corner and you bump into somebody. You say, "Oh,
You put your hands and your shoulders up and you jump back and you
yeah, sorry,
you don't even
oops."
say sorry. You just say, oh.
No, you say, "Oh, oh," and they're like, "Oh no," and their response is, "Oh no, you're fine."
So it's like, oh, a ghost.
Oh, a ghost.
Yeah, so that is how we got our name. So I got into the paranormal really as a little kid. My mom would put on ghost shows for me when I was way too young to be watching them.
What do you mean ghost shows? Like ghost
Not,
hunters or
no, not ghost
like horror
hunters,
movies?
horror movies, really, things about the paranormal that were not true, but terrifying. So I just kind of got obsessed. And then the first ghost hunting show I ever watched was Paranormal State with Ryan
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
at like 14,
Ryan
15 years old.
Ryan Buell,
Yes. And I wanted so badly to go to Penn State and join his ghost hunting team, which was way out of my reach.
fangirl.
Yeah, 100%. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then it just became a lifestyle.
It became a lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent all of our time, any time we've spent together has been ghost hunting
This is true. This is true.
or eating.
Or I was I don't know how to explain how I got into it because it's one of
Was it
those
before
things.
you saw your first ghost?
Oh yeah, way before, like when I was a kid. There was paranormal television wasn't a thing. You couldn't turn on the
Television
track.
wasn't a thing.
Well, okay, it was, but it did go off at like 11:30 at night, and then there was nothing until 5 a.m. But there would be like there was a show in the 70s called That's Incredible. And it was usually like people that could do, interesting things. Sometimes they would label them superhuman things. But every once in a while they'd have like some sort of ghost story. And the one thing that I recall being the standout thing was there was a story about a haunted Toys R Us in
Oh,
California. And there was a name for the ghost, and I guess it was haunted for a long time. But they eventually tore it down. It's been torn down. I don't know. It's probably a parking lot now. But from that moment on, I was like, because I was a kid, Toys R Us, I'm very interested in that. And the haunted one seemed even more interesting. That, and there was always a few books in the junior high library, and
yeah.
that were, there's always like three, that I had checked out multiple times each. But just kind of got hooked on it from there.
Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about you, do you want to tell us about your first paranormal experience?
Well, I can tell you about the first major one. I'm sure I had others before,
Okay.
but the one that like I can vividly remember wasn't that well, I say it wasn't that long ago. It was 25 years ago, but I was at a friend's house. I was between apartments and I was staying at this guy's house for probably about a month. And um I was in the living room, which was a small house. And so the living room probably wasn't much bigger than the room I'm in now. And I was sitting kind of in the corner. There was the wall to my left, and then the wall running the back wall was behind me. And 10 feet away, 12 feet at the absolute most, was a doorway into the kitchen. and it's not late. It's like 11 o'clock, and um, I can't remember if his parents were gone or if they were in bed. But I'm just laying on the couch watching television, and I see movement out of my right on my right side, and I look over and I see this woman go across the door to the refrigerator. Um, when you if you're looking at the door from where I was sitting, she went from left to right, and on the right side, the door is only about the walls only comes off the main wall about 36 inches, and on the other side is a refrigerator. So once you go across to that area, the only place you can go is to the refrigerator. She wouldn't have
Right.
been able to walk away or go somewhere else. And I didn't think much of it. And then it occurred to me that she never went back across, that the refrigerator never opened. I would have heard it. The light from the refrigerator, the kitchen was dark. The light from the refrigerator would have filled the room. I would have noticed it. None of that happened. But I was like, oh, whatever. Maybe I just missed it. And so the next morning, I see his mom, and I said, hey, I saw you last night. And she says, you did? Where? And I told her what happened. She goes, oh, that wasn't me. That was probably Edna. And I was like, who's Edna?
That's terrifying.
Right. And she said, she's the lady that lived here. She died, and she points. She goes, she died in that chair. I was like,
How
oh,
close
that.
were you to the chair?
We were standing in the middle of the living room, so like 3 feet.
So you weren't like sleeping in the chair?
Oh no, I was on the other side of the
Okay.
room. I was, when the chair was just out on my side of the door that's
Oh my
in that
gosh.
kitchen. So yeah, so I was, she was wearing the moo thing that older ladies wear, and she was, she had the same hair and the same body type, and I just assumed it was his mom, and she's like, no, nope, wasn't me.
That's Edna.
That's Edna.
That's really,
So
really creepy.
yeah, I never saw her again, but I was always like, a little bit freaked out. Like if I was sleeping, my girlfriend would be over. I'm like, God, I hope Edna doesn't show up and freak her out.
So that's the only experience you ever had there.
The only experience I had there. Yes.
Wow. That's creepy. So I guess it would be my first experience. I've never, aside from the things that have happened to us while we've been ghost hunting, I've never had anything directly happen to me. But before we lived here, we lived about a block and a half down the road. And every single year on the same exact night for the 3 years that we lived there, my oldest Jackson would wake up screaming every year on that night. And he was inconsolable. He would not go back to his room. One night we tried to carry him back, and he had his hands spread out on the doorway and his feet, and refused to let us take him back in there.
Right.
Super weird. And he has autism, so he was nonverbal at this time, and he couldn't tell us what he was scared of or what was wrong. And then on the
For
first two
the whole 3 years.
the first 2 years he was nonverbal.
Okay.
So on the third year, he had started to say just random couple sentences here and there. He couldn't hold a conversation with you, but he'd tell you a few things. So the third year, he's screaming and crying, and I'm like, Jackson, what is wrong? And he just looks at me and says, the floating people are bothering me.
The floating people are bothering me.
Terrified us. Isn't that just
I mean,
creepy?
did you ever look into the history of the house to figure out if there was
So it
like,
was a trailer. So I don't know how to find much history out of it. I don't know if it'd be
right,
the land that it was on. I do know an older lady lived there at one point. I don't know if she died in the house or had moved out before she died. I know she's no longer alive, but I don't know that. But so that's not even where it stops. So that was the last time it happened to us. We moved out the next winter, that winter of that year, and we just moved a block and a half down the road. So come around again to that date, and we get a knock on our door. We knew the people who had moved into it, and they came down to our house and said, is that place haunted? Because we're having some weird experiences. Our son, who has autism, refused to sleep in it. what is going on? So we told them all of our experiences and they moved out shortly after.
They had an autistic son too.
They had an autistic son who was grown, like he was an adult, but he still lived at home.
Right. Still, that's strange and
So weird.
interesting that there are two autistic, well, children, one older, one
Uh-huh.
younger, but still.
That's why I say we live in a simulation.
Right. Was the older kid guy, was everybody experiencing it or was it just him?
So the family actually bought the trailer that we lived in and the trailer next to us. And the family was living in the trailer next to us, and they had given the autistic son our trailer so he could try to live on his own but not be at home.
Right. So
So,
he's just next door. So if he needs something,
yeah, so
right.
he was really the only one experiencing it because he was the only one who lived in the house.
I know where you live. There's only like, a handful of trailers in that entire town. So I
Yeah.
could probably figure out which one it was.
Yeah.
Um, that's really wild that
Hmm.
this,
And they
so,
say kids can just, they're more apt to pick up on things.
oh yeah. And autistic kids too.
Well, yeah, especially. And we always got a uncomfortable feeling in their bedroom over anywhere else in the house, but we didn't ourselves experience anything. Just Jackson.
Was so the autistic son from down the street was experiencing stuff in his trailer. Were the other people in the other one experiencing?
We were the only two that actually lived in any. There's like, I think there's 6 trailers on the block. We were the only two that were occupied aside from the landlord. And I didn't ask him. He was a strange man.
So the people that came and knocked on your door, were they experiencing things in their trailer?
No, just the one that we had lived in that the son was living in.
Wow. Interesting.
Yep. Which then makes you think it's got to be the house and not the land.
Right, right, right. I mean, that's what I was getting at. I was trying to figure it out. But I mean, and the problem is it's a rental.
Yeah.
And so you can't really probably do a lot of research because
And the
people move in
landlord
and
is since
out and
deceased, but he's owned them the entire time they've been there.
are they still there?
Yes, they are inhabitable now, but they are still there.
Uninhabitable?
Did I say inhabitable?
Yeah, I didn't know if you
Yes,
meant that they were
they are uninhabitable.
unable to be lived in.
He was very old and they just kind of
Yeah,
deteriorated the
fell
past few
into
years.
disrepair and he didn't fix them because he couldn't. And
Yep.
yeah,
But floating people. I guess we could just go down
floating
there and ghost
people.
hunt the property.
That would be interesting. My, I'm just trying to think.
But what's weird is that it
In
only
a
happened on that one day every year. It was not a constant thing. So it's almost like a
Really?
residual.
So was it the same day when these people came and knocked on your door? Or
It
was it
was it
that
was like
day?
the day after we always had the experiences.
Real? Oh, so they had it the night before. I wonder if they were having them all the time, or if it was just like
Well, they
for
made it sound like he was experiencing more because he said our son keeps having these experiences.
yeah, that would imply more than just a one-time thing.
Yeah. But
Huh.
we only had the one night a year.
That's crazy. And maybe since he was nonverbal at the time, maybe it was happening more often. He just didn't.
That's true. Maybe that was just the night that was the scariest.
Yeah, that's. I mean, what do you know what night that was? Is there anything special about it, or is it like Tuesday, the 3rd of June?
I think it was in the winter, but I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go. So the only reason I realized that it was happening on the same night was because the first year I had made a Facebook post about it. And then
Ah,
when it happened on the second year, I was looking at my Facebook memories and I was like, whoa, this just happened on the same night a year ago. Then the same thing the third year. And I was like, okay, this is weird.
yeah, that's crazy. That's insane.
Hmm. Yep.
Insane. Well, I was going to tell you about one other experience I had.
Okay.
So I teach high school, and I was not at my current school. I was at a different school. This has been 15 years ago ish. Um, and there was a girl in class, smart kid, someone that if they said something to you, you believed them. They weren't
Okay.
someone who is, there's kids in your class that are going to say things to you, and you have to take them with a grain of salt. But with this girl told me something, I would believe it. And she told me, I don't know how we got on the topic, but we were talking about the school had what they called the old girls locker room. It wasn't a locker room anymore, hadn't been for years, but it was right off of the old gym. Like most Midwestern schools, high schools that aren't brand new, they have the original building and then they've added onto it two or three times usually, and then there's the new gym that they use as the primary gym. Well, this
Yep.
is down by the old gym, and the old gym had this little ramp that you would go up and you would be in the girls locker room. And if you walked in there, it was this really long room, probably almost as long as the gym itself, um, and probably only about 15 feet wide. And when you first walk in, right across from you is the coach's office, and it has glass windows around the sides that actually face the locker room, about waist high, and the rest of it's wooden and stuff. And when you look down the locker room, you can still see the sinks and the mirrors on the left. They're not operational, but they're still hanging there. The shower heads are still there. None of the stalls or any of that kind of stuff would still be there. It was a junk room and just where, I mean, I want to say it was storage, but most of what was in there was just trash.
Huh.
Um, so, but we were talking about it, and this girl says, "Yeah, when I've a couple of times since they'll go in there, you'll go in there because a ball will roll up the ramp, where you're playing volleyball or something, so you have to go in there and chase the ball."
Hmm.
And she goes in there after a ball or something, and she sees standing in front of one of the mirrors, she said, a girl wearing a poodle skirt type thing, like the 1950s, or which probably goes up through the 60s, even at
Well,
small
that's the
towns.
least scary ghost I've ever heard of.
Right. Well, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so a few days later, I go down there because, it's during my planning period. I don't have students or anything. So I wander down there, and it always feels weird down there because it's old, but you're not sure, am I feeling that heaviness that you feel when you go into a place, or am I just, is it just creepy old place, and
Yeah.
it's kind of creepy in there because of all the crap and trash. And I go up the little ramp, and I just kind of stand in the middle of the room right by the door looking towards where this girl would have been standing, and out of the corner of my eye, I see that I see a shadow person,
Mm.
that classic leaning out,
Yeah, the
you know
peekers.
yeah, kind of thing. And so of course I instantly look over there, and of course there's nothing there. So I don't think much about it. I look back down the hallway, or down the room, and I'm standing there looking. And sure enough, I see that
Oh
lean
my
back
gosh.
out, slow lean back out. This time I don't look, because I know if I do, it won't be there.
Yeah.
But I just stand there, and it just stands there, and then slowly goes back in. And I'm like, all right, I saw a shadow person. And I didn't. So, and I went back a couple of times during, I remember thinking one time, I wonder if that shadow person's still there. And sure as hell, I go down there. I'm just standing there, and I'm
Every time?
there every time, like two or three times.
Wow, that's
After
weird.
two or three times after that one time. So, like three or four times total.
Do you know of
Um,
anything that ever happened at the school?
I don't, it was, this was before things like school shootings was a thing. Not that they
Right.
hadn't ever happened, but it wasn't a common thing like it kind of is now, unfortunately. But
No, but there were like
um,
accidents in the
oh
old
yeah,
days. Students fell off of bleachers or
students die, in car accidents or medical emergency. That's the thing. It's and the thing about a school is it's a kind of a charged space because there's a lot of
yeah.
emotion. There's there you've got young people feeling young people emotions, and
Uh-huh.
there's anger and fear and love, all that going on top of that. You've got
Sometimes
that.
you've got your old janitors who just really loved the school and they want to hang
Yeah,
around.
yeah. I mean, we had I remember one of the janitors. This was where the old gym was, in the original section of the building. In the original section of the building, you walk in the front door, and you immediately have to go up steps. And so it's kind of like a split level home in that way. You walk in,
Yeah.
you go up a flight of stairs, and then there's a second floor, and there to work the second floor, you had to like do half of the building from this side, and then you had to come down and go down a hallway and then go up a back set of stairs to get the rest of it. And there was a janitor that would come in, and I was talking to him one day about stuff, and he said, yeah, I come in and I do the second floor first thing because there's ghosts up there.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, really? Do tell, and
Yeah.
it's like, he's like, there's doors will be open that, you'll go in a classroom, you'll prop the door open, you'll go in a classroom, you do what you got to do, empty the trash, all that sort of thing. Then you come out, you close and lock that door, and then you go over and you go in the next room, and you'll come out, and a door will be open that you were in already. You already cleaned that room, but the door will be open, even though
Wow.
you shut and lock the door because
Hmm.
you're just in a routine. So he always said he'd do that top section first and get it done, so he wouldn't have to be in there after when it got dark.
Yeah. So that school just has a lot of activity.
Yeah, I think a lot of schools probably do. I don't know what's special about that one.
I mean,
I've
I can
never
think of one school that you could get us into to ghost hunt in
I can
particular.
too, but I'll be honest with you, I've never had. There's one section, and it's the
The
old
old
set.
gym.
No, well, no, sort of. Yeah, I mean, down in that area,
Yeah.
and there's um, it's again in Midwestern high school. You've got the old original built in 1903, building, and then it's been added on to 5 or 6 times. And the only place I've ever felt weird is in that oldest section. So
Have
because
you
it's
been
the
there like late often?
not well, no. I've been there at night before for various things, whether it's parent teacher conferences or anything, but never alone or anything. Um, but it's there's a how do I explain it? There's an area that it's all behind a door, so you have to go in a locked door to get there. It's in the technology guys area, which they changed the lock on me. I used to go down there and get a printer cartridge when the printer in the hallway would die. Um, but you would go in there, and then there was a door in there that I thought, I was being nosy one day. I thought it was because it's when you first walk in, it's right there in front of you. I thought maybe it was just a closet. So I opened the doorknob, look, no, it's stairs. You go up these old stairs, and they're old because they're worn. They got the dip in them, that they're so worn.
Uh-huh.
You go up there, and it's like an old choir room. There's like these risers that you stand on. You know how the choir kind of stands behind each
Yeah.
other, so everybody's above the person in front of them, so they can sing. And there's a chalkboard on the wall. And up there in that area, that'd be the first place I'd put a camera if I were doing it. The second place would be there's two old locker room areas in the old gym. One was the old football locker room, which they still use mostly for storage, and the other side is again just a kind of a dump. But no one ever goes down there. No one ever uses that space. They use the gymnasium itself for like indoor practice during baseball season when they can't go outside because of rain and stuff.
Yeah, when I
Um,
was going to school there, we used it to ride our little scooters on.
yeah, it's the floor you can tear up and not really care too much about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
The
putting that on
junior
our
high
bucket
uses it.
list.
The school. I imagine if I sweet talk the right person, I could probably be in there, but it would just be a matter of not setting off
Alarms.
alarms. Yeah. But I would definitely need to have that technology area open. I don't think the technology area itself is anything, but the upstairs above that would be a good one. And there's do you remember the janitor's hallway that goes there's a room door, you'd go in and you go down some steps, and if you walk all the way to the back, there's the janitor's office.
Mm-mm.
It's a little hallway. It's up on what we call the hill.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
So that used to be outside.
Oh,
If you go down that hall, if you go through that door
that's
and
odd.
you walk down that hallway, you look at the wall on each side, and you can see, they've bricked over it, but you can see the old windows where the windows were. And so
Weird.
that area was like an area between, these two parts of the building that was open for some reason. I don't know.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like shaped like this, except
Yeah.
they were a lot big chunkier sections, but um shaped like this, like goalposts is what the sign I'm making for heaven. This is not a visual medium for
No, it's not.
um
But we're probably gonna do that a lot.
right. The current library, has these lofts on both ends. And I've always thought
Ooh.
if I was a shadow person, that's where I'd be hanging out. The first time I walked in there, I thought I saw
Lofts that
movement.
we have access to get into? Like we
Yeah,
could
you
sit up
just,
there and watch?
yeah, you could. I think you could. They have pull down stairs, I think, to get to them.
Okay,
So
bucket
like when
list
you,
item.
yeah, definitely that school. But I have never seen anything there like I saw at the old school. It was never scary when I saw it. I mean, I didn't run screaming out of there like the dirty sweatshirt gang. Um, I should say the afflicted t-shirt gang.
Yeah, we're too young to understand you.
Um, Zach Bagans and the boys, they tend to run a lot. Probably shouldn't say Zach Bagans. You can beep that or something.
Zach
Um,
Bagel Bites.
Bagel Bites and the boys, they run when they see stuff sometimes. But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
that's not our style.
not my style. I've never ran from anything I've ever
I've
seen.
screamed. I have not ran.
I've never screamed
I
yet.
screamed when I saw the shadow person that was attacking you.
It wasn't attacking me. It was
We'll
just
get to that later, but yes, it
hanging
was.
out behind me. I don't think you screamed. You guys, I was impressed. I mean, without getting into that, if I thought for sure, maybe not you or M, but the other girl that was with you, I can't remember her name.
Her name was Lindsay.
I thought for sure Lindsay would lose her shit.
Yeah, she's not
But
a
she did not.
ghost hunter.
Yeah, she's a trooper. I mean, you guys hardly made a noise
I
until it was
have
gone.
slight memories of screaming and almost throwing my Pepsi can.
I,
That's all.
I, I just, you guys said there's a shadow person, a huge shadow person behind you, and I had a
Okay, you're
digital
giving it
recorder in
away. We're
my.
not there yet.
Okay. More
We'll
to come
tell
later.
that on a
All right,
different
no spoiler
episode.
alerts. No
Those are
spoiler
for the
alerts.
Jacksonville, Illinois episode.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, at my own old school, there was a shadow person that I would see that I saw two or three times, and usually only when I was down there looking for it. If I went down there for some reason, like there would be, sometimes we'd be doing things in the school where we'd be using both gyms, and I'd go down there. I wouldn't see it then.
Huh,
Just when I
that's
was just
odd.
yeah, just when I was down there by myself, knowing I was going down there to see if it was still there.
It would
I mean,
just be like, hey, I'm still here.
yep. I had always planned to go back, and when I saw it lean out, it would just stay there until I looked. I've always thought about, kind of going like this without waving at it with my hand,
Mm-hmm.
without actually turning to look to see if it waved back, but I just never got back down there for whatever reason.
That's
And
awfully creepy.
yeah, I've wanted to go back, and I still have friends that teach there, but they've since tore down the
Oh
entire school.
no.
Yeah, they tore down the whole all but like the newest section, which was built um oh, it would have been built about 15 years ago. So that part they kept, and they rebuilt the rest of the school. So that whole section's gone now. And I don't know if you went down there. It's a locker room though. That's the interesting thing. That area is now still a locker room.
Yeah, it seems like the locker rooms and gyms are the trendy spots for the hauntings.
I mean, that's where I think for the most part, the most emotion is,
Yeah.
basketball games and dances and all of that sort of thing. So it would make
Mm.
sense to me.
Okay, so other than the experiences that have happened to both of us together on our ghost hunts, I don't really have any other actual ghost experiences. But I have the most ridiculous amount of sleep paralysis. It probably happens 2 or 3 times a week. And the very first time that it happened to me, I was living in my mom's basement. I was maybe 19 years old. And it was the most terrifying experience. I just woke up and I could not move. And most of the time now, when I have sleep paralysis, it's kind of hard to tell if I'm, in a sleepy state or if I'm awake. But
Right.
I just know I was awake this time and I could not move. And then I heard somebody at the top. I was sleeping in the basement and I heard somebody at the top of the basement stairs just going, Heaven,
So
heaven.
you hear somebody speaking?
I heard it and it scared me enough to finally be able to move. And I bolted up the stairs and there was nobody awake. I thought maybe my mom is up here messing with me or something.
Right.
Everybody was sound asleep. I went and grabbed a blanket from my sister's room and slept on her floor. And when everybody woke up, they were like, "Why is Evan on the floor?" But it was the only time it happened to me in that basement.
Right.
Scared the heck out of me.
And
And
so how
now
often does this happen?
I get
The
sleep
sleep
paralysis
paralysis.
at least once a week, normally twice a week. I
Wow.
don't know why. And like it's gotten to a point where it happens so much that I have learned little like tricks to pull myself out of it.
Really?
Of like I'll keep my phone in a specific spot so that like I know I can reach it to like because as soon as you can move a little bit, you can almost pull yourself out of
You
it.
can break it.
Yeah.
I've only had it once and it was really short lived and I almost felt like something was on me, you know, like I couldn't
Uh-huh.
move. And I don't know, I have no idea how to explain it to you other than to explain it the way I'm going to explain it.
Did you hear the like sucking your soul out of you?
No,
Oh,
I just felt like something was, I mean, I felt it's hard to explain when you say I felt like something was on me because it's not like I felt like something paranormal was on me, but
like a
like,
pressure?
yeah, like someone has you and you're just like, imagine being like someone wrapped you up entirely in saran wrap and you can't move. You can feel that you're pushing against the thing, but you can't, you
Yes.
can, but you can't move. And I felt like at the time I just kind of like centered myself and
Uh-huh.
just kind of like
Willed your
for
way out of it.
yeah. But I mean, it was one time and it lasted like 10 seconds, if that.
Oh man, some of mine last a really long time.
Yeah. I'm curious to know how long. I mean, are they long or do they just feel long
Well,
or both?
exactly. And are you even awake or not? Like sometimes I'm certain I am, but other times I'm almost in like a weird in between dream and reality state. Normally, a few times I've seen a shadow person over me, and then I hear us like almost like they're trying to like suck the breath out of me.
Like a Dementor kind of thing, Harry Potter
Really,
style?
yes, 100% Dementor, but in full shadow form.
Wow. See, I was wondering if you saw anything because there's, one of the podcasts we listen to. They talk about sleep paralysis a lot, and he
Uh-huh.
always sees this thing. I think it's a spider. He always
Oh
sees
yeah,
this,
coming down from the
yeah,
ceiling.
huge spider, and it's like, okay, now I know that I'm in having a sleep paralysis fit because I'm seeing the
I know it's
spider.
not real. Yeah.
Right, and I was
I
wondering
only
if you
ever
had the
see
same thing.
shadows. I I don't think I've ever actually seen any objects or anything detailed. It's always a shadow. The only other time that it actually really scared me is we did a movie night with the kids in the living room and I fell asleep on the couch and I was in sleep paralysis all of a sudden and I saw where my couch is, it's like the hallway that goes back to our bedrooms is what I
Hmm.
was facing from where I was laying. And I just saw the shadow of like a person walk toward my bedroom. And I like screamed out of sleep paralysis, kind of like jolted myself up, woke up my husband, made him go check the house. There was nothing there,
Right.
but I saw somebody walk past, but it was just a shadow.
Interesting. How far away would this have been? Like all the way down the hallway? Like they were walking down the hallway
No,
or just like went
it's not even
across?
like an actual hallway. It's like our hallways in this house are very like open. I just call them hallways. It's
Right.
like,
Just the space between the rooms.
yeah, really. It
But
it
it's
would have
liminal
been just
space.
like maybe 4 feet in front of me.
Wow. So really close.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's liminal space, and there's a whole theory, and we can get into that some other day, but there's a whole theory on on liminal spaces that are like these spaces that's
Like
for
a plane of
movement.
existence between us. Is that what
No,
you mean?
it's more like um more to do with like the hallway in a school is liminal. It's nobody hangs out there. It's not a place
Oh,
you sit
okay.
down or anything. It's just a space where you move through. And there's like this whole theory about the kind of energy those kind of spaces have. And I mean, we, like I said, it
Because there's
gets,
just
it's,
so much movement that goes through them.
yeah, it's more, it's hard for me to explain. It's more
Huh.
complicated than just that, but
We'll do an episode on it.
yes, definitely. Or mention it when I've looked at my notes on it, because I do have some notes on it somewhere. I just
Of
don't know
course you
where
do.
they
You
are.
always have notes on everything.
I do.
So that's really all my experiences other than what we have shared together since we met ghost hunting.
I the only other one I could even begin to mention is that thing at SIU Carbondale when I felt like some, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. You should have you should have time,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I think I can get through it. So the only other one is I was in Carbondale at Southern Illinois University, and I was in one of their auditoriums. I can't remember the name of it, and I had to. Well, I was waiting for something my daughter was in, and I go to the bathroom, and as soon as you walk in the bathroom, it's like walking back into the 1950s. Everything in there, fixtures, everything was, and they weren't like reproductions; they were original fixtures, and it was super quiet in there. I mean, I don't know if it's just insulated well, but it was like dead silent. You couldn't hear what was going on in the auditorium or anything. So, I take care of business, wash my hands, and I get out. But I remember thinking all the way back to my chair about how weird that bathroom was. And I sit down and I'm sitting there for like 2 seconds, and I feel like this huge breeze. I could hear it in my ear when it happened, blow across like the back of my neck, my left side. And I figured somebody had walked into the aisle behind me. So I kind of lean forward, and look around. There's nobody back there. Nobody's behind me. No one went into the aisle.
Right.
The ceiling's 30 feet high. So it's not like the AC kicked on, because I mean, I felt it, a strong breeze on the back of my neck and heard the wind. So, even if I was sitting underneath a vent, it would have had to been a darn powerful one, but there was nothing there. So I have no idea.
Something followed you out of the
I don't
bathroom.
know. I mean, it's weird. It's one of those things, like, how do you explain that? But I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
That's creepy. Yeah, I agree. So that's it for our first episode of Opa Ghost. And I think really we are just going to try to bring you bi-weekly episodes of whatever paranormal thing we feel like diving into that week,
Sounds like fun. I'll be
right?
there. I'll be there.
I really hope so. Bye.